If you own a Dyson vacuum cleaner, and in this case specifically the DC25, and the motorized head unit is making a horrible noise and the brush is not actually spinning, it could actually be one of about three things. So you have a few options. You can order an entirely new Powerhead assembly, which is about $70, or you can repair it. And in some cases, some of the things are fairly inexpensive, like this rubber belt or this sole plate. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to disassemble this and identify where the problem is, and then also how to put it back together so that you can decide whether or not you want to replace the whole unit or just a part of the unit. I'm going to put links to all of these parts in the description below. If you click the link and actually buy something, it benefits me and my channel, so I would greatly appreciate it if you do that, if you find this helpful. Also, please don't forget to give this video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe if you'd like to see more kind of do-it-yourself, fix-it-around-the-house type videos. So to disassemble the Powerhead, you actually only need a few tools. You need a T15 Torx bit or Torx driver. What it looks like. I've got mine on just a little gimbal style ratchet to make it easier. Need a Phillips head screwdriver and just a standard screwdriver with a flat blade or something similar. Okay, so to disassemble your power head unit, the first thing that you need to do is take it off of the vacuum. So you can do this by turning your vacuum or laying your vacuum down on its back, and there's a little gray tab here. Essentially pull that down and then work the head unit directly toward you, and it should come off and look something like this. Now to actually break it down, you're going to want to turn this, and on yours it'll be gray, but you'll turn it counterclockwise till it clicks, and then at that point pull this straight back toward you, and you can take it off by pulling it off to the right. Once you do this, you can remove the brush. And there are essentially 2, 4, 6, 8 Torx head screws and 1 Phillips head screw. So you will loosen each of these. And then this one here. And when you take this one out, this little cap comes off and the wheel pulls out. The wheel has a little metal pin that goes through it, so don't lose that. Keep all the screws in a little baggie for later. Once you have all of the screws out of the bottom, this upper piece will come loose. So just kind of work around the edges and slowly work it off. It lifts off, exposing the actual motor. And what you'll find is this rubber belt here between these two gears or pulleys. And before you can separate kind of the lower sole plate and the midsection with the motor, you actually have to slide this belt off. And you can do this with a flathead screwdriver by just working your way on the big one, because the big one doesn't have a ridge to hold the belt on, and you just slide it off away like that. And then you remove the belt. And once the belt has been removed, the sole plate assembly will come away from the, I don't know what you would call this, but the middle assembly that has the motor actually attached to it. So once you have everything apart, you can start examining it. It's probably going to be quite clear what the issue was. One of the more common things is this rubber belt breaking. But in my case, it was the actual sole plate assembly that cracked. There's this big gear here with some bearings on it that actually drives the brush head. The sole plate assembly had cracked. This had gotten twisted around and binded up, stopped turning. So essentially this entire assembly needed to be replaced. This was about $30. Again, there's a link to where I ordered it in the description below. And this is the brand new sole plate assembly that I received. So genuine Dyson. I always recommend buying genuine parts for pretty much everything, because they tend to be just better in general than aftermarket, even though they're generally a little bit more expensive. So to reassemble the unit, once you've done all this, you essentially set this piece down into the sole plate assembly and just kind of like work your way around it and line everything up. it should mate together pretty easily. One thing to note, there are little rubber seals along the sole plate assembly that will kind of hold these two pieces apart. You should be able to squeeze them together with minimal effort, but it does kind of hold it apart to create a seal. So keep that in mind as you're reassembling it. And once you have these two pieces mated back together properly, you need to get the belt started. And you want to do this in essentially the opposite order that you took it apart. So you start by putting it on the little gear, because that one's the one that has the lip and is going to prevent you from slipping it on, and then slip it on the larger gear. Now, the nice thing about this motor is it has like a shock absorber. So as you're doing this, start at the top and then just kind of rotate everything until you get the belt seated on there, and then you can use a screwdriver, kind of push it on properly. It shouldn't be very hard to do, but this is nice because it'll allow you a little bit of play. So once these two pieces are back together, you get this top cover, and this slides down over everything. And there's some little, I'll show you here, like little screw pillars that need to go into the corresponding slots on the other piece. So just kind of keep those in mind as you're working it down on there and get those lined up. So it kind of has to go straight down all at once to seat properly. There we go. Just like that. Now you've got to flip the entire thing over to put the screws back in. So just kind of take your time, look everything over. There we go. So that one actually clicked into place a little bit. Okay, once you're happy with how that fits together, just start putting your screws back into place. And remember, all these screws, they are all the Torx bit screws, with the exception of one, which is a standard Phillips screw, and that's the one that holds in this wheel up in the top corner. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the wheel so that we don't forget it. And this little wheel essentially has a little metal pin that goes through it, and then it sets down in there just like that. And then there's a little cap that covers it, and you take the one Phillips head screw that you have, put it in there. And remember, you're putting these screws into plastic, so don't over tighten them. You'll just strip it out. You know, just snug. It doesn't have to be super tight. And then start replacing these screws. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 screws that need to be replaced. Once you've replaced all 8 screws and snug them up, essentially put your brush back in. You want to look, one side has a little bearing on it, the other side has a hole. You want to put it in whole side first. You might need to twist a little bit so that it mates up properly with kind of that drive gear. And then the final piece is your end cap, which goes on, kind of like work it on there over the end and then down into place. You might notice I've got the plug or locking screw, whatever you would call it, is actually 3D printed because mine just kept coming loose and it's just not a very good design. So I printed one that's a little bit bigger and it stays in place better. But turn that clockwise once it's locked into place, and you should be good to reinstall it on your vacuum and see if it works. In addition to the little belt and the cracked sole plate, I think the only other thing that can really go wrong with this unit is like the motor or the board itself. You can order replacement motors, but if you find that your sole plate is okay and the belt's fine and your gears all look good, it might be better off just, or you might be better off just replacing the entire head unit rather than trying to buy a replacement motor, because I believe those are about $45. It's starting to get kind of close to the price of a whole new head unit. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments and I will do my best to respond. Thanks again, and please like, comment, and subscribe.